Welcome back to another episode of Seduce Me. I can't wait to find out what happens today. Come along and play with me. I could practically feel my dad's aura from behind the door. Sam and Eric quickly rushed to the door and opened the double doors wide to reveal my parents, both dressed in their best. Hey, Mom. Hey, Dad.
Oh my, I didn't know your bequeathment came with servants.
It was probably overlooked. Besides, who would deny good service?
I was completely shocked. My parents didn't even question the boys. They didn't ask for verification or anything. I looked to the boys and noticed Sam and Eric staring intently at my parents. Were they using their powers on them? They had to be. There was no way they'd be okay with this otherwise.
I guess the servants counted as belongings to the house.
My mother quickly rushed to me and gave me a large hug, and I hugged her back, inhaling her perfume. It'd only been a couple of days, but living away from the ones who raised me was hard. My mother soon let me go and looked at my outfit.
Gorgeous. You look so lovely. David, look at your daughter and tell her I'm right.
I looked to my dad, who was looking around the lobby like an inspector. I stood my ground, waiting for him to look at me, and when he did, I let a small smile grace my lips.
Your mother's right. You look like you're all grown up.
The world around me just stopped as my heart pounded hard in my chest. Did my dad just compliment me? On his own accord? My mother was grinning ear to ear at his words. I was beyond speechless. Thank you, Daddy. However, his face quickly returned cold as he began to look around once again.
I assume that you're ready, then, to impress the rest of the guests, correct?
What do you mean?
The entire board from Anderson Toys is coming tonight. Even the vice chairman's son will be coming. All of them will be measuring your potential.
My potential?
To become CEO of the company.
I knew it! Something was off about tonight, and now this party became much more than I anticipated. I gulped silently and nodded in response. I looked to the incumbi, but they were continuing being servants for my father's approval. I looked behind me and saw Naomi and Susie raise their thumbs at me for encouragement, and I let out a small breath before feeling my body accept the situation. I felt a weight in my gut, and I had to hide it. As if time zoomed forward, all of a sudden the main hall of the lobby was full of guests. Men and women in formal or business attire showed up to meet me and see my new home. I didn't expect many to come, but once again, I was surprised by that night. I shook hands with many officials and executive members, putting on the professional face my dad had trained me to have. I felt overwhelmed, but I hid it well behind a small smile and a handshake. Many even asked me questions. I tried my best to reply as maturely as possible. I had to remember, say what they want to hear, not what you want to say.
So, how do you feel living on your own at such a young age?
It's been pretty good, actually.
I'm so sorry about your grandfather passing away. It really hit all of us hard.
Thank you for your
Do you
condolences.
have college plans?
Yes. I feel like the questions came up one after another. It was tough to answer some of them because they weren't about me. They were about the company.
What do you think will happen with the company now that your grandfather has passed?
That depends on who runs it.
What do you think of the philanthropic policy the company has?
We would be more concerned making profits.
Do you think the company should expand from just toys?
It's a possibility. Eventually the questions stopped and I was back to being myself. Naomi and Susie were mingling in the crowds and the incubi were doing their jobs. So I was all alone in a room of strangers. It's unnerving to think about, but at least I wasn't being questioned left and right anymore. Suddenly, though, my mom pushed her way through the crowd to me, bringing along someone I didn't know.
Honey, I'd like to introduce you to someone. This kind gentleman is the son of the vice chairman.
With my mother stood a man who looked only like a couple years older than me. He smiled and held out his hand to me, silently asking for my hand.
Hi, I'm Andrew Lewis. It's a pleasure to meet you, Miss Anderson.
Andrew was taken back, but gently smiled and lowered his hand with a nod in return. My mother smiled at both of us, which made me slightly concerned. Why is she excited to introduce me to Andrew?
So, you organized this party very well, Miss Anderson.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome. Praise is very much deserved.
Andrew then chuckled nervously, bringing a soft fist to his lips to cover his laugh before smiling at me.
I'm sorry if I seem a little forward. I've just been excited to meet Harold Anderson's granddaughter.
Huh? Why?
He used to talk about you all the time in the office on how you helped him refine his toys. I only attended meetings and heard all of the stories. You've helped a lot with the success of the company without having to actually work there.
Wow, I didn't know he talked about me that much. That explained why everyone's fascinations with me and their rather personal questions. I looked at Andrew, who had a kind face to me. Something about him seemed off, and I didn't know what it was. He seemed to be hiding something, whether good or bad. I was not able to find out. I felt someone walk up beside me, causing me to turn to them. Next to me was my dad, giving me the cold stare to Andrew, and suddenly he became very tense.
So, you're Jared's son.
Andrew's body twitched slightly, whether it was out of fear or insult. Andrew's eyes locked with my father. I couldn't help but feel the tension between them. It irked me how fragile the air had become, enough to break at the wrong word.
You're the one who wants to be the next CEO of the Anderson Company.
Well,
I stared at Andrew. This guy wanted to take my grandfather's place as CEO? I thought the vice chairman wanted the position.
David, leave the poor boy alone.
I'm merely testing the boy's conversational skills. Nothing wrong with that.
of course not, sir.
And polite as well. Interesting.
If you'll excuse me.
Quickly, Andrew retreated away from the family into the crowd of people. Stay put. I watched as he disappeared into the crowd toward the back of the house. I was worried, but I gave him his space. He obviously needed it.
Peh. He's not CEO material.
That's because you practically interrogated the young man.
A little questioning shouldn't have bothered him. He's obviously not ready for any title in our company.
I bit my tongue. I didn't want to make a scene with my dad. One wrong word and he'd lecture me in front of everyone. That is not something I wanted at my housewarming party. I let out a sigh before looking at the clock. It was getting close to midnight, meaning the party was going to end soon. I lowered my gaze out the window and saw a limo pull up. Huh? Whose limo is that?
Oh, that must be Lewis's car.
I'll go get him. Stay with your father so you can escort your guests out together.
Yes, Mom. My mother left, and my dad and me slowly escorted the guest out. My dad held a simple smile as he thanked each person for coming. I did the same. Andrew quickly passed through the doors before I could speak. Eventually, only Suzu, Naomi, my parents, and the incubi were left. My dad suddenly walked over and placed a hand on my shoulder with a smile. I stared at him. A wave of confusion washed over my face. What?
You did good tonight. I'm proud.
Oh, well, thank you, Dad.
Keep it up, and you'll be a good CEO.
Oh, right.
All right, your mother and I have to leave. I'm sure Naomi and Suzu need to leave as well. Just because it's Saturday doesn't mean you should stay up all night.
Oh, right.
Thanks for having us. It was a great party. We'll come visit tomorrow or something. All right?
Right. See ya.
Good night, sweetie. Come visit us soon.
Will do. All four of my remaining guests left the building. All but my dad waved back with me. With the last of the guests gone, I sighed and sat on the staircase, exhausted. Whew, that was tiring.
It's not like you had to do any work, though.
Thanks, Sam.
Give her a break, man. She was getting interrogated left and right.
She handled herself the best she could.
As expected, Princess.
Since you're exhausted, why not head to bed? We can clean up.
Ugh.
I'm not liking Sam. He's just kind of a dick.
Hush, Sam.
And I think the brothers agree. Are you guys sure?
Positive. It shouldn't take long.
Ho ho ho! It didn't take long to find you little shits after all.
I felt a hot shudder run down my spine. The voice from my dreams echoed throughout the air into my ears. I looked around, panicked, alongside the incubi. James placed a hand on my shoulders, trying to remain calm.
Don't worry. No one will hurt you.
Are you sure? Are you really sure?
All of us shot our heads towards the door, finally pinning down the direction of the voice. The doors quickly swung open, revealing a sight I never would have expected to see. Skin red as blood, eyes black as gold, piercing into mine, roughened up clothes, and a pistol in his hand. I saw a monster. I covered my mouth not to scream at the sight. Dry blood covered the bandana around his neck, and he smirked at me and the boys around me. Beside the red-skinned man was a similar-looking woman in matching thug-like clothes.
Aw, what's the matter, boys? You really didn't think I wouldn't find you, did you?
I hoped you would, you piece of...
All of a sudden, the man raised his gun at Sam's face and instantly pulled the trigger. We all gasped in shock and instinctively expecting to see a bullet run through Sam's face, but...
What the fuck?
What?
What should have been a headshot ended with a loud but empty blank shot. The pistol echoed its empty shot as the man grew more and more pissed, pulling the trigger over and over again in aggravation. Luckily, for my ears, it became quieter after its first shots.
Why the fuck won't you work?
This place is protected.
What did you say, Shrimp?
This place has a seal, protecting it from hellborn magic.
What the fuck is that supposed to mean?
The man growled and threw his gun at Sam, who was able to dodge it in time. The pistol bounced off the ground in a couple of times before sliding further away, hitting the wall in a final stop. As it stopped moving, the gun faded into a black flame that disappeared into the air.
The previous owner had this place protected by magic, Malix.
Malix, that was his name. His existence resonated in the memory of my dream I had. However, I looked to Matthew in the same confusion as Malix did. This place is protected by magic?
It would seem that your grandfather had some sort of protective barrier around this house. From the looks of it, it only disables hellborn magic.
Malix's face grew of extreme anger, his fists tightening as if he was crushing a stress ball.
Then what's stopping me from dragging your asses out and shooting you then?
Out of pure instinct, I stepped forward and placed myself between Malix and the boys. With no power, Malix wasn't going to fight. I took that chance to stand up to him instead of being powerless like I was in the dream. Fuck off. Malix suddenly laughed wildly and stared at me.
Whoa, whoa! Let the bitch out of her cage! What is this? A reverse harem or something?
Malix grinned at me evilly, walking close to me. Duck. I ducked underneath Malix's incoming hand. I stared at his hand and the black flame tattoo in surprise as I took a couple of steps back from Malix. Matthew and Damien stepped in front of me, guarding me from Malix with their arms.
A quick one. I'm liking you more and more.
Back off, Malix!
Don't start acting tough, you pathetic excuse of a demon. You need more protection than her.
Shut up!
Oh, did I make little Matthew cry? Why don't you just grow a pair?
Enough, Malix.
The woman, who had been standing in silence the whole time, planted a firm hand on Malix's shoulder. Malix looked back at her and growled with a glare that could kill.
Since when did you get the guts to speak out of place?
We both know you've never controlled me. I want them dead just like you two. But now's not the time.
Not today.
Fuck off! I know what I'm doing.
Do you? Even if you did fight them, there's 5 against 2. We never win.
Nope, you wouldn't.
Shut up!
Let's go, Malix! We're wasting our time!
The two growled at each other. If they had used their magic, I could have sensed that the fire would glow under their teeth. Malix grunted and glared at the boys. He pointed at James, wanting so badly to use his fingers like a knife.
Just wait, pretty boys. We'll get you and fuck you up real good.
I do have to say, that is an amazing evil laugh. That is an amazing evil laugh. Then Malix turned to me, moving his fingers, and pointed directly between my eyes.
And don't think you're safe. Step outside. I dare you.
With that, Malix and the woman walked out of the mansion. The doors closed behind them, leaving the boys and I alone once again. I felt my knees give out underneath me, forcing the boys to quickly turn to catch me.
Whoa, whoa! Are you alright?
Yeah. Why was he here?
He's been closely tracking us. Our blood trail from the forest must have led him here.
We should have stopped him and finished it here.
For once, Matthew, I agree with you.
I stood up and rubbed my arms. The feeling of goosebumps Malix left behind on me. I couldn't stop but shivering in fear of his words. Malix, was he a demon?
That son of a bitch is not a demon. He's a devil.
A devil? There's a difference?
Yes. Demons come from a different plane of existence called the Abyssal Planes. Devils, however, come from one of the 7 circles of a place humans know. It's hell. Despite us not being human, we are very different creatures.
We actually have brains, for one. Devils always like to cause trouble and try to kill or torture others for their own enjoyment. Demons, like us, know when to use our powers and when not to. We're not stupid.
Hopefully not.
Devils follow orders from higher-ups in their order, and their power only comes from their connection to hell. Demons all have free wills and don't rely on where they came from to use their powers.
This is all so confusing. Demons and devils and magic all existed, and I happened to land in the middle of it? So what do we do?
You're safe. You've been protected as well.
What?
What Damien's saying is that the magic that protects this place also protects you.
Your grandfather must have cast it when you last saw him or something of that nature. We can sense its aura around your body.
I couldn't believe my ears. It was the 3rd day of surprises, and this one took the cake in being the most surprisingly. I felt my head spin once again. What was I getting myself into?
Miss, please don't worry. We'll find a way to train ourselves and become stronger to finally finish this feud.
Kick his ass right now!
Until then, we'll protect you as much as we can. If Malix comes back, we'll be here for you.
But what about going outside? Won't he?
Like we said, you have a protection spell on you. Even if Malix attacks you, he won't be able to use his magic on you. He'd be just like any other human you can fight back against.
Didn't you say you knew Taekwondo?
Well, yeah. I felt so relieved that I was mostly safe from Malix. Still, I couldn't help but feel very nervous and apprehensive about the future. The boys were safe here to train and become stronger. But what if Malix did the same? Even more so, I was lost about how my grandfather knew about magic. I had to find out. At least I had time. I went to bed that night feeling nervous. Despite the words of the income, I felt like a target to something I've never been able to explain or prove. Magic? Demons? Devils? How did this all happen? Should I really meddle with this situation? They're only saying until after they defeat Malix. That's right. They said they'd only stay until after they defeated him. After that, my life would go back to normal. Temporary insanity, as Kay would say. The question was then, would I want them to leave? If my life went back to normal, then I'd have to care for the house all on my own. I'd have to get focused on my life instead of being distracted by the boys. I'd have to. My life. Where was my life going anyways? I was under pressure from my parents, with only my friends and the boys to comfort me. Without the boys, I'd have no way to hide from my responsibilities. Enough. Let's just sleep and deal with it tomorrow when it gets here. Defeating my sense of thought, I forced myself to go to sleep, unsure of what tomorrow had planned for me. Hopefully, whatever the future had for me, I'd be ready for it.
I promise to be with you forever. You're so important to me.
I swear I'll give my life to you.
Please, let me love you.
I'll be by your side, always.
I can't imagine living without you.
I want to be with you.
I love you.
Wow. Today's episode was crazy. Who would have thought that would have happened to us? Make sure you join us tomorrow. We have a lot more fun planned.